It's hot. I mean, it's really hot.
Hello and welcome to MidnightSilvercrafters.com. My name's Steve and I'll be your host. Today in this video, we're going to learn a new way to make wax patterns for lost wax casting. Okay, I'm out here, I'm just pouring some wax into these molds, but this right here goes to show you that you don't have to have a wax injector to make wax patterns for lost wax casting. You can pour wax, and also you can just get a cheap syringe, a barbecue syringe from Walmart, and you can inject your wax with a cheap syringe. All right, on to the video.
All right, I'm out here in my garage, in my shop. I'm doing some things a little bit different than what I normally do. I got a bunch of work going on. I'm just making a ton of rings, but I'm making just a slew of these. I'm making like hundreds and hundreds of these rings. I'm working a deal with somebody, but I've got like hundreds of these rings that I'm going to have to tree up. And, making a tree can be a bit of work. But I'm going to show you some things really, really interesting. And today I'm going to show you these. Okay, but now I came up with something that I think is absolutely incredible as far as making a tree for all your parts. You know, when you're going to make a big tree and you're going to have, 100 pieces on each tree or whatever. I came up with something that's absolutely incredible, and I came up with this just a total experiment, because I'm always experimenting. But I'm gonna make a video. I've been working on this video. Is going to be a separate video, and you want to be sure to watch it. I'm gonna try. Hopefully, I'm gonna have the video up tomorrow. But tomorrow's video is going to be about treeing up a massive amount of parts on a tree. And what I've came up with is a whole complete totally different method of making a tree. And to me, I think this is one of the most brilliant things that I've ever came up with. Now, maybe somebody else might have already figured it out. I don't know, but that's going to be tomorrow. So you want to make sure you don't miss that video tomorrow, because I'm going to show you how whatever you're doing, if you're making a tree with a lot of parts on it, I'm going to show you how you can make that tree so easy in absolute record time. And it's going to be like nothing you've ever seen. So be sure to watch. I'm hoping I'll have the video up tomorrow. It may take me another day. I've got it mostly done. But, I got a lot going on, but you're going to want to see this video if you tree up a lot of parts. I know my friend David Collison, I'm probably saying his name wrong, but David's over in the UK, and I know David is making some tokens, and he's got massive, he's got like 300 tokens, in one mold, just incredible amount of tokens. But David, this video tomorrow is going to absolutely blow your mind when you see this video on my new method of making trees. I don't think I'll ever make a tree ever again the way I always did, or the way most people do. But all right, that's tomorrow. That's not today's video. I just wanted to, I'm real excited about it. That's why I'm giving you a little bit of information about that now. But what I want to show you today is right here. What I got is I'm making a lot of jewelry tools. Okay, now these are just doming punches right here. Okay, now you see this is just a steel doming punch, you know, for working with a doming block and making, you know, working your metal down and stuff. And then these are chasing hammers. This is a little chasing hammer that I'm making. Okay, I'm going to cast these up. Now, these were my patterns. I use these right here for my original patterns, my original models that I made my molds from. And these are my wax patterns. Okay, now what I want to show you today is I want to show you how I made these wax patterns. And I did something, you know, I'm always thinking about bigger and better ways of doing things. I'm always thinking of, you know, coming up with something that's going to save time. You know, it's going to be quicker, faster, and easier. And I started thinking about, you know, how I was going to go about making these parts, because I'm going to make, you know, my plan is to make hundreds of these things, okay? Not just a few, but I'm going to make hundreds. So I started thinking about, you know, my wax patterns. Now I'm going to do I'm going to cast these using the lost wax method. I know I could, you know, cast those, you know, with sand casting, but I don't want to do it that way because I think I can do it better and faster using lost wax, okay? Now, the whole thing about what I'm doing right here today is the molds. All right, now what I want to show you is this. Okay, now I tried an experiment. I tried something that I've never done before, and I made some molds. And right here's the mold. Okay, that's the mold right there that I made. Okay, now, I made this mold, and I made these wax patterns out of this mold. But I'm going to tell you, this mold right here is super, super, super fast, and super, super easy, and super, super cheap to make this type of mold right here. And it is incredible. I mean, if you look real close at these patterns are an identical copy of my model, which is back there. Now, the way I made this mold, okay, I'm going to show you. See, here's another one. See this? This one, I'll turn them up this way. I don't know if you can maybe see better this way. This one, now these are the same. These molds, I made them all the same. This one was for this piece. There's the wax pattern, if you can see that. There's the wax pattern, and here's the mold that I made my wax pattern from. Now, I'm going to tell you, these molds, this is something new I just tried. I've never done this. I just tried it as an experiment, and I am absolutely thrilled with the results that I got from these molds right here. All right, now, here's another mold that I made. We'll talk a little bit about this one later. This is a real special mold, and I'm going to explain that in a little bit. But these molds right here probably cost me about 50 cents a piece to make. Absolutely dirt cheap. I mean, I think the cheapest, fastest, easiest way to make a mold is right here. Now, these molds will pick up absolutely incredible detail. And with these molds, you just pour it. You just pour the wax, okay? You just pour your wax. This is exactly, if you know anything about slip casting and how ceramic molds are made, that's exactly what type of mold this is. I made these molds in about 10 minutes for each mold. Just messing around, and I'll tell you what, I am convinced that these are some awesome molds. But you see that? You just pour your wax right in here. Okay, now this one's the same thing. You just pour your wax in these molds. You don't use a wax injector. And that's another cool thing. See that little hole? I just pour wax right in that hole. And here's my wax pattern. Okay? But see, it's a cool thing because you don't need a wax injector. You just melt your wax on the stove and pour it in. And these molds will pick up incredible detail, which is amazing. Now, I'm sure you can make jewelry molds with these type of molds. Okay? Now, there are certain parts that you're probably not going to want to use this type of mold for. But any piece of jewelry that you can cast using the sand casting method, you can make with these molds. In other words, no undercuts. Or in mold making, they call that draft. Negative draft. No negative draft. No undercuts. But if your pattern doesn't have undercuts, but there is a way to make these molds and have it to where you can produce parts that do have undercuts, okay? But they're dead simple to make, okay? And I'm going to show you right now how simple and easy they are to make. I mean, they're so easy and they're just awesome, okay? Now, all you need to make these molds is this right here. If you can see this, Plaster of Paris. That is the cheapest stuff you can buy. You go to Lowe's for $15 or Home Depot for $15. You get a whole bag of this. Okay, this is 25-pound bag. And this costs about $15, okay, for 25 pounds. All right. Now, Plaster of Paris, dead simple to work with. And it's so easy. But all you do is, I'm going to show you right now how quick and how easy it is to make these molds. All you do is you get you some clay like this. This is plain old modeling clay. That you get this clay from Michael's. Okay, and it's the cheap stuff. It's what the kids play with, plasticine or something like that, modeling clay. But all you do is you get you some clay like this. You see this chunk of clay? Now, you're going to want to build you a little frame, a little square box. Now I use this stuff because it's real easy to work with. This is foam, but this is foam like you can put resin on this. I do all kinds of stuff with this foam as far as making molds and models and whatnot. But you make a little square box. You cut this with a knife, you cut this with a pocket knife or anything you want. You make a little square box around this clay out of this stuff, and you duct tape it together. It takes about a minute to make that little box. All right. But you just make that little box, little mold frame, okay? Then all you do is you take your pattern and you push it down into that clay. All right, now this is a 2-part mold. Now halfway down, right to your parting line, you just push that in. Okay, that's all you do. You got your box there. You push that down into your clay. Now I got some stuff here that I use all the time. It's the best to use. Now this is Vaseline. But what you do, you take some Vaseline and you take a mixture of half Vaseline and half mineral spirits, and you mix those two together and you put them out in the sun and heat them up or in a warm place and let them melt together. So half Vaseline and half mineral spirits, and this is a release agent, and it will work on every kind of mold you can imagine. Now, I've made molds before for ceramic, for slip casting, and that's exactly what this is. See, this is a 2-piece plaster mold, but now this mold release right here is going to keep these parts, these 2 mold halves from sticking. Now, this clay, plaster will not stick to this clay. It'll peel right out. So you don't have to worry about release agent on this clay. But on your part, you lightly brush that on there. This is Vaseline and mineral spirits mixed together. You lightly brush that over. You can go over the clay too. It's not going to hurt nothing. But, you know, you just take a second. You brush that down. Now, you let that sit on there a minute. And then you go and you get another brush. A real soft brush. And you kind of buff that around. Buff that down in there. And you can put a couple layers, but you just buff it and brush it and it'll buff it. It'll kind of dry in there and just brush that around real smooth. And then, so you got your box around here, and then you just mix up some plaster of Paris, mix it real smooth. And a cool thing about it, you don't have to worry about air bubbles, okay? That's another thing that's really cool, and I'm going to explain that in a second. But you just mix up some plaster, you pour that right on there, okay? And then half your mold is done. Okay, now, you let that dry for about an hour, okay? Then you take it just like this. Now you're going to have your box around here. Now, you're just going to pull that up. Now, this clay is going to be here inside your box, and you just pull this clay right out. It'll pull right out. And you're going to pull that right out. And that's going to be right down in your mold, in your first half of your mold, okay? See? So what that's going to look like, I'll show you what it's going to look like. I'll just show you real quick. I'll just take this off. It's going to look just like that, okay? This one fits it. All right, it's going to look just like this. All right, now there's my first half of my mold. We just poured this bottom half. Now you see these edges right here? What you do, see they're going to be flat. because you poured that and it's going to be flat. Well, you take a knife and you just carve a curved side to it. You see how that's got a curve on it? Here, maybe I can get you a better shot of it. But you see that side, how I cut this? I cut this curve down. You see that curve? Now I did that on 3 sides. I usually would do that on 4 sides, but see that curve? Now that's your locking system. That's your registration. This is your registration that locks your mold together where it won't move. And see, now this particular part, you pour it right here from this. This is your sprue hole. There's no sprue to this mold. Okay, that's the sprue hole. Now this mold, see, there is a sprue. See, this has a sprue on it. See, that's the sprue. I made this intentionally this way because this is how I want to make my hammers, because I think I'm going to have a better product in the end, but I want to stay focused. But see, this mold's exactly the same. But see how I cut that? See how I cut those grooves? See, now I got them cut on 4 sides of this one. Because see, my sprue is up here, my sprue hole, my pouring hole. But back to this. So now here you go. You're right here like this. And you got your boxes still around here, and you check it real good to make sure nothing's going to leak. And then all you do is on this, you take this, actually you take this out of the box and you cut these. Okay, you cut these rounded sides like that. You carve those out like that. That's your registration. Then you put it back together. You put your frame back around it. And then you do the same thing with your Vaseline. Your release agent is going to go onto this plaster. Release agent is going to go all over this. Be careful. Don't disturb that parting line. Be real careful when you do these, okay? And then you're just going to pour your second half and you're done. I mean, once you make a couple of these molds, you can make these molds literally in 10 minutes, okay? It's really, really quick. But I'm telling you, I am absolutely convinced this is the way to go if you want to make some wax patterns. And I'm sure you can do, like I said, I'm sure you can do jewelry. I mean, look at this. Let me see if I can zoom in. Look at this pattern. I mean, this pattern is just dead perfect. It's a little dusty, but it's perfect. I mean, it's absolutely perfect. Now, if you do get some little air bubbles in your molds, it's not a problem. Because what you do, you take your 2 halves of your mold, and you use this same release, and you coat these real good with release agent, and you let it dry and you buff it down with a soft brush. And what that's going to do is going to fill in all of these, all those air bubbles will fill in with that release agent. It'll level that surface and it'll make it just as smooth and perfect. So you want to put release agent on real lightly and buff it down with a real soft bristle brush. But there you go, just like pouring slip, which is, if you don't know what slip is, it's liquid clay. And that's exactly how they make ceramics. These are ceramic molds. They're plaster molds. But I'm telling you, they're just awesome for making wax patterns. But I'm telling you, they're awesome for making wax patterns. That's what today's video, I wanted to show this. How cheap, simple, and easy it is. Alright, now, I'm going to make me hundreds of these things. I'm going to make probably about 10 molds of each one, of everything that I want to pour, and then when I start pouring, I'll just keep pouring molds, and by the time I'm done, at the end, I'll go back and take them all out. But they're so cheap and easy to make, I can make 10 or 20 production molds like this and get all my wax patterns made.
Okay, I think I'm going to go ahead and end it here. Please subscribe to my channel if you haven't already subscribed, and please leave me some comments. I'd love to hear your feedback, and if you have any comments, just leave them down there in the comment box. But if you do decide that you're going to subscribe, if you would just leave me one little comment, if you would just write down there in the comment box, just leave me a comment and put I subscribed, that would be awesome. I'd really appreciate it, and that would really help me a lot as far as growing the channel. So, okay, I guess that's it for today. My name's Steve, and I'll talk to you in the next video.